Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the football podcast, and we're talking international football. That's right, it's England football, and everything that might entail. There's football news, football reviews, and football previews and predictions, and talking English football. Before we get started, while I've got your attention, please do consider like, share, subscribe, and comment. And if you've got spare time on your hands, you could consider leaving us a review. Let us know how much you love the podcast. Right, let's get started. So here we go. This is CookieCast, the football podcast.
Recording in progress.
Paul, you're up.
She ain't lying, is she? Welcome along, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. It's that time of the week again. We're back for your televisual and audio-visual and audio feasts of football nature. We'll give you a little bit of an update as to the situation regarding our clubs. And for this week and last week, it'll be more international flavoured as well. So, welcome along, one and all. And let's dive straight in with the England games that took place last week. As you can see there, for people watching on the YouTube, Mr. Cook had the book ready and waiting there, and he was just flopping it about.
I have the book as well. So, whose job is it to do the score for the international games?
Well, what we've done in the past is as we always give out our team's score, and you don't technically have a team, you could give us the score. And more importantly, you could give us the scorer.
No, I can give you the score. I can give you the score, no problem.
And any points that Paul had have now been deleted out of the book.
we will be covering.
Trust me, having already seen the scores, I don't think I have to worry too much about that for the first game.
A little bit of foreshadowing there, some would say. There's been off-air controversy. Points were given, points were deducted, points were re-given, and I think we're going to leave it to the general public to decide whether the points in question actually make any difference. So, Hungary versus England. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say heavily on the podcast, heavily in England's favour, apart from one, Mr. Stuart Woodmansey, who edged his bets and went with a 1-1 draw. Everybody else was like, yep, England have got this one sorted, no problem. Obviously, when it was 1-0 to Hungary, that kind of scuppered all of that. Here's where go on, Stu.
It could have been a 0-0 had it not been the method of score that it was, or the goal score that it was as well. I very stupidly put some highlights on the following day. It wasn't on very long, is all I'll say.
All I can remember from seeing from the post-match roundup was hotly contested penalty decision, etc., etc.
Well, there's been a couple of them, but we'll get to that.
So with the majority of the podcast swinging in England's favour, there was few points to be had. Now, this is where I butcher a Hungarian footballer's name. Okay, here we go. Brace yourselves. Nah, when the second letter is a Z, how am I ever supposed to be able to even?
So, if you're gonna take a pot shot at it, what do you reckon it would be?
Shall we all have a go? I'm going to start here. I'm going to go Sabolai. That would be mine.
And I said Zabozlai, which basically sounds like somebody from the West Midlands as well. That was a really bad accent. Zabozlai.
I'd have gone with pretty much what Stu went with. I'd have gone, Zabozlai.
Should I get everyone's favourite West Midlands correspondent out of the bath and down to give us the traditional pronunciation from a obviously West Midlands perspective? No, I think you're pretty much bang on. As far as I'm aware, it's Dominic Zobozlai.
That's exactly what we said. It's fine.
But the question is, Stu, is that what a member of the podcast said? And this is where the problem has arisen, because it's a fast-paced world of podcasting. It's fast-paced. If you're not in it, you're not winning it. And sometimes myself, with my limited brain capacity.
So the problem you have, I'll put it on the screen.
Here's the problem.
So the two people mentioned for number 9 and number 10. The number 10 is the goal scorer. The number 9 is who I believe Mr. Matthew Moore picked to score a goal for Hungary.
Well, hang on a minute. I messaged the group earlier today and admitted that very kindly. I think I'll hold my hand up and admit that I got it wrong.
And this is what happened.
Not that I'd got it wrong. That maybe the point had been given to me in.
And that's what happened. So, because I had essentially written in haste and probably should have, as keeper of the book, should have double and maybe triple checked what it was to the letter that Matthew was asking for, I did not do that, which then caused some confusion. Now, looking at what you put on the screen there, Paul, I think my actual spelling was very close to the way it was spelt. In the book, Matthew has gone with somebody whose name is spelt S-Z-L-A-I, which, as I said, is very close to one of the players on that list. Unfortunately for me, it also has a lot of the letters of the name of the person that scored the goal. And I then went, oh no, I've done a bad thing. I've shortened something. I've done it wrong. I've failed in my duties. What do I do now? So I went out to the collective. Gentlemen, more Matthew, did you pick the Hungarian goal scorer? Nobody knew the answer to this. Nobody knew. Well, not sure. I then forwarded a picture of what I wrote down as the correct spelling of the correct goal scorer and what I wrote down as Matthew's goal scorer. And I was like, look, this is what I've got. It's all on me. What do we think? Stu was like, yeah, he's got it there. You've got it. It's fine. And points on the board. I was like, cool, points on the board. That means that somebody actually got points on the board, and I'm happy with that. However, as time passed, Matthew came forward and said, thanks for the vote of confidence, but in fact I did not correctly predict the goal scorer. So, what has happened is I gave the point because, as I said to Paul, I was like, look, at the end of the day, it's my fault, and as keeper of the book, I have that power to hand out extra points. Just by literally, nobody's here, I'll just write it in, job done. But I was like, maybe Matt should have points for honesty. Who knows? The question,
just look at Paul's face right now.
The question,
I think we know the answer to that question.
Question which will shortly be answered is: does that 1 point make a difference to the weekly total? Let's find out by talking about Germany versus England. It's a rivalry as old as time, gentlemen. Oh, I'm supposed to be doing the scores, aren't I? Damn it. I am aware from group text conversation earlier in the game that England were not doing overly well in this game. Some might have said, some were using words like poor. And I checked the score, and in fact it was 1-0 to Germany. This was not the way this game was supposed to go, especially according to a lot of the podcast. However, a check of BBC Sports Football, actually revealed that by the end of the game it was 1-1. Goal scorers of Hoffman and Harry Kane due to a penalty, I believe.
Yep.
As we know, by previous games, I have known to be wrong. So, gentlemen, I believe there is some conversation needed around penalties, the game in general.
So, I watched the majority of this game and wasn't overly impressed by England. There was a lot of talk, certainly from the Sky Sports News team beforehand, saying how the Germans were seeing the English team as the benchmark that they once used to be. I thought, well, that's absolute nonsense. It was a very big build-up for essentially a game that doesn't really mean an awful lot. But at the end of the day, it's still England-Germany, so you know people are still going to have an interest in it. But to say that England got to the final of the Euros and they're been in quite a good position of late, I thought they were absolutely played off the park by Germany for the majority of that game.
I think the worrying thing about it is if that's the England starting lineup, and I think it is, it was devoid of any kind of creativity, any ideas. They struggled to keep hold of the ball. They looked, and people are like, oh yeah, it's typical of you guys on the podcast, get a quick dig in on Leeds. But they looked better when Calvin Phillips went off and Bellingham come on, because that lad is a unit, and good as well. I just thought they were poor. I couldn't. Sterling didn't get into the game. I don't know who's got to Harry Kane and told him that he's Lionel Messi, because he isn't. So he needs to cut out the flicks and the little kind of things that he keeps on trying and stuff like that, and get up in the box where he's meant to be.
But what was that about? When they set up like that, as they always seem to do of late, he is not there to be doing that job. So why is he why now? It worked so well in the summer last time around. Why has he gone back to this? I'm going to piss about with it for ages business.
Do you reckon he's coming off the back of his club form in the fact that he's so used to playing in that system at Tottenham, where he basically knows that even though he's up top on his own, he's always going to have Son sort of somewhere in and around him to sort of pick up the balls that he knocks down and things like that. If he's
It wasn't even that though. It was he was flicking it and kind of trying to backheel it into space where there was 2 or 3 German defenders already, and it's if you're going to do that, I think in his head he's got the number 9 shirt and he thinks he's Lionel Messi. He thinks he's a number 9 when he's not a number 9. He's not that player. I'm not saying he's not skilled, but he's not a creative. If knocking it down and laying it off, I'm fine with that, because in theory England have got those players. They've got Sterling, they've got Grealish, they've got Foden when he's not got COVID. They've got they've got players that can play the Song role.
Well, they don't set up in that way though. They sit them too wide to there's nobody then central enough to pick up that ball, because Kane's just sat there flicking, like you say, flicking it to himself.
And just, some of his stuff just seems to be unnecessarily flashy, would be kind of thing. And I think sometimes some players, once again, sounds like I'm kind of, some players who aren't as good as the players they aspire to be try and do things that those players don't do. Lionel Messi, I don't see him when he's flicking, and fair enough, he's not quite the player that he was, but I don't see him doing little daft flicks off the back of his heel or like off the side of his foot. He controls it and plays it, whereas Kane seems to play the ball with a complete lack of control to it, kind of thing, and in really daft places.
Well, the main headline though that came for Kane was that it was the penalty was his 50th goal for England, wasn't it?
Yes.
That now moves him further up the all-time England goal-scoring charts.
Only one to go now. He's only got Rooney to overtake, so...
Because he was level with Lineker, wasn't he? And then that separated.
No, that was him level with Bobby Charlton, 49.
Okay. But it came off the back of a very soft penalty decision for me, and it was given by VAR, and maybe that's just a look that they had against them, sort of coming back their way from the Hungary game, because that was a soft VAR penalty as well. But I suppose it was given, it dispatched it against a very good penalty goalkeeper as well, in Manuel Neuer. But yeah, they were lucky. If that had been you're watching your team in the league, and you'd come away with that, you would come away feeling like you'd won the game. Never mind draw it. Yeah. But the other team will be like Germany. Will be absolutely fuming again if it actually meant that much.
The only positive I took from it was Bellingham looked really, really good. I thought he came on and looked like really settled and really got kind of nice skill, got stuck in and that kind of thing. And I thought Declan Rice looks awesome. And I was watching the coverage, and then all of a sudden someone started kind of blaming Rice for the Germany goal. I'm thinking, well, Jesus Christ, nobody else did anything. I barely remember Mason Mount's name being mentioned. Like someone mentioned him at once. There, I was like, "Oh, was he playing? Was he?" Because I genuinely didn't remember that he was.
He got mentioned 3 or 4 times, and at least 2 out of those 3 or 4 times was him ploughing into the back of somebody. It wasn't anywhere near the ball. I thought, as much as I might not enjoy saying this, I thought Grealish made a difference when he came on as well. Yeah. And the same for Bowen. His touch let him down a couple of times, Jarrod Bowen, but I suppose he's just, this is only his second, no, not his full game, but his second game for England as well. So, sort of hoping for a bit more from him, but at least he got a chance.
I think he set up a chance, didn't he? Which was to come into a game like that where the team that you're coming on for has been absolutely dominated for the best part of 70 minutes.
Yeah,
is difficult to then come on and make a massive change. But I thought, he made. Like I said, there was a couple of good runs, a good cross or two. I don't know. I'm not a massive Jack Grealish fan. I don't find him as offensive as you guys do. But I thought he made a big difference when he came on. He kind of attacked. He ran at people and did things as opposed to, I don't know, it's like they're trying to play territory at times, particularly Sterling and Kane. It's kind of like, right, I'll pass the ball to you and then I'm going to run a little bit further. Then you give me the ball back and then, but make sure you stick behind me because then I'm going to pass it back to you. Then you can pass it again and the team's like, well, hang on a minute, just playing keepsies between themselves here. It was just uninspiring, and particularly after last summer, which was a bit more inspiring and encouraging. It kind of seemed to have gone back to same old, really, and we're sticking with the same player. We're going to stick with the same players that got us to where we were. Yeah, but what if they're not good enough, and what if there's better players about to take place?
Falling into that age-old England football supporter trap of they've done a bit of all right in the last two major tournaments. So now they should be beating teams like Hungary and all the rest of it. It's not going to happen every time, is it? So
no, and particularly at the end of a long season, and you don't want to kind of roll out those cliches that no doubt will be trotted out in like 5 days' time or something like that. But it is a long season, and a lot of them have played a lot of games this year, and I know Germany and Hungary probably have as well, but it's how up for it you are.
Just like sort of skipping ahead quite a long way. Next season's going to be a weird one, isn't it? And the fact that this summer and this season and this summer is kind of like all rolling into one, and then the next season will start, and then there's going to be this weird bit in the middle where it's the World Cup.
6 to 8 weeks off.
Are they just stopping everything?
Yeah.
So like, obviously, like I'm assuming like League 1 and 2 will still continue, but it'll be just like a 6 to 8 week international weekend.
Yeah, pretty much. I think is it something like the 18th of November or something like that it's supposed to start.
It might be even earlier than that.
But then
they're back on the 18th of December, I think.
But then that'll feed into the end of the end of next season. Will then get pushed on, so therefore you'll have less time next summer. And
I don't know for that because they're trying to get around it by starting the season earlier than they would this year.
Mm.
So whereas normally like the Football League would start first week in August, it's supposed to start like last week in July instead.
So the Premier League will start on the 6th/7th of August.
That'd usually be when the Football League would kick off, and then the Premier League the week after that.
Alright, so then as a result, the match round, I hate this, very American, match round 16 will be the final one played over the weekend of the 12th and 13th of November. And then the Premier League will resume on Boxing Day.
So there you go. So what's that? Yes, that's about 6 weeks. Isn't it?
Can you imagine what state Jurgen Klopp is going to work himself into next week? He is the one that moans about the Christmas fixture list so much, and yet his players are all going to come back from the World Cup and then just start again on Boxing Day. Oh, fun. Anyway, we went a little bit out there, but yeah.
So at this point in time, everybody's waiting with bated breath to find out if that 1 point that Matthew's got on the table currently is going to make a difference. So, starting with a bang, Paul Williams correctly predicted a 1-1 draw, getting himself 2 points. And that's where the scoring ends for Paul. Stuart Woodmansey went in with a Desmond. Still a point though. And a point for Harry Kane. 2 points for you, sir. I had England down to win. Did put Kane down to score though. I'm not an idiot. Now I know what you're thinking. But hang on a minute, the book goes Paul, Stu, Matt. Matthew Moore predicted a 1-1 draw for 2 points. One of those goal scorers was Harry Kane. So, that's 3 points for Matthew, and if you've all got your abacuses out, yes, that extra point did not matter one bit.
Exactly.
Because
it doesn't even need the extra. It doesn't even need the charity
don't
point.
I don't even need it.
in no particular order. No particular order.
Why is he come cap in hand? Why is he sending these pleading messages at 3 a.m. in the morning saying, please give me the point, I really, really want it.
Were those messages to Andy that you sent? Because I didn't send anything like that.
All I'm saying is I haven't seen any checks or brown envelopes, and I've seen Paul in person today, so That's why the scores went the way they did. Like, that's all I'm saying.
But you don't work for FIFA, Andy, so these things don't happen. All views are my own, etc., etc.
I was a good, honest boy, and I told the truth.
And karma repaid you in kind, Matthew, by giving you the win. So, scores for the week: 1 for Mr. Cook. Paul and Stu tied for second place on 2. And winning with 3 or even 4, Matthew Moore. Mr. Williams, do you want to set up where we're going to go after our break?
So there'll be a little bit of chatter, obviously, on the World Cup theme. We've got one more thing to sort of cover on that basis. And obviously we'll cover the games for next week, and then we'll have a little news wrap-up. Maybe a little bit of domestic-based nonsense to finish.
Well, in that case, we should take a break and get back after it after the break. Be right back.
Recording in progress.
Do that.
He's not wrong again. So we left off where we were saying that we were going to come back to discuss some World Cup-based information. And I believe we covered it slightly at the end of the podcast last week, where Scotland were scheduled to play the Ukraine in their semi-final playoff to meet Wales for the right to go to the World Cup in Qatar. Ukraine got over the first hurdle, beating Scotland 3-1, I believe, and then moved on to face Wales in Cardiff. And from a home nation's perspective, it was Wales who were successful in getting themselves through to their first World Cup in 64 years, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Did you see the goal?
Congratulations to our Welsh brethren. Obviously, with a surname like Williams, I can't be far from the Welsh tree, so to speak. So inevitably, when England get knocked out in the group stage, I'll be digging up my Welsh heritage and
possibly at the hands of Wales, who are in England's group.
Very well said, Matthew. Yes, that is correct. Wales, Ukraine, or Scotland were slated to take the final spot in England's group in the World Cup. So that group now consists of England, Wales, Iran, and the United States of America. So definitely no long lost relations anywhere in that group. It's happened before, actually. I think it was the World Cup 1998 when the USA and Iran were paired together in a group, and everyone thought, "Oh God, this is going to kick off." And I don't think anything happened other than Iran beating the United States. Everyone just went home a bit disappointed. So, but yeah, that was it really. Just to sort of to wrap up there's only, I think, one space left now, and it's either going to be Peru or Australia. I think.
Yeah, that's on the left.
Maybe there was something to do with New Zealand as well.
I saw that Australia beat Iraq.
No, the United Arab Emirates.
Oh yeah. They won their game to go through to the final because it was the playoff. That was the playoff semi-final. The other thing with the Wales thing was they had Neville Southall on Sky Sports. Just a kind of general kind of wild card in it, and I think he said something along the lines of there being a population spike in 9 months' time if Wales go through. And the guy was like, "I wasn't expecting you to say something like that." I'm like, "It's Neville Southall, mate. What were you expecting to happen?"
Just a raft of little baby Gareths. Unless you just go the whole hog and just call it Bale, I suppose. But yeah, so congratulations to Wales and all of our Welsh contingent. I'm sure there's some out there that are listening in Wales. So best of luck to them. Obviously, apart from in the game against England. So.
Well, England have got a bit of sort of not necessarily beef, but it was the Euro. Was it the Euros or the World Cup the other year when Wales ended up getting much further than England when they got knocked out by Iceland at the time?
2016, that one.
So yeah, so they've got a benchmark to get to get further than Wales.
So that's last week's games done. England have got 2 more friendly games due for this coming week. So let's dive into... Well, they are basically friendlies, aren't they? Nations League. Yeah, fair enough, it's Nations League time. But it's basically a jumped-up friendly.
Yeah.
Well, the week starts with England. I'm shocked to find out England play. They're going up against Italy. Now, when I was writing my prediction in the book, I had to try and work out whether Italy were or still are the side that they were at one point in time, where they were considered to be good, and or still are and or not. So there. Who, as it's all of our team, who is going to go first? I can do a little... Go on.
I have stuff written down.
Do it.
I found this one difficult because Italy are very, very... They are the definition of hot and cold. So, obviously, go all the way in the Euros, don't qualify for the World Cup. So, England, I feel, are very similar in many ways, although they did qualify for both. But I've gone England 1, Italy 1. Sterling is due a goal, seeing as he didn't score last week. And for Italy, I have gone for Scamacca.
Okay.
May or may not be, because he reminded me of a James Bond villain name, but that is just my own pick.
When I picked mine, I was like, I was working like, using the old noodle, and I was like, I imagine to silence the doubters, it's going to be worth England coming out on top form for this. So I've actually gone heavily in England's favour with a 2-0. I agree that Sterling is absolutely due a goal. That's why I've put his name down. And if it's 2 goals, just throw Kane's name back in there. Just, why not? Matt.
I am going to go with a 1-1 draw. This game is technically behind closed doors. Somewhere in Molineux, is it? I think something like that.
It is at the Molineux, yeah.
With however many thousands of children. So I've gone Belotti for 1-1 draw. Belotti for Italy. Belotti. So nobody can be whingers about it, Paul. Female dog. And Jude Bellingham, I think, he impressed me. So hopefully he'll get a star, kind of thing. I almost went for Spinazzola for Italy, just because Spinazzola. I thought it was quite an enjoyable word to say.
Paul.
I'll go optimistic and go for a 2-1 England win. I'll go for Kane. And he's not had the best 2 games sort of in a row now, so I'll go for Mount to sort of bounce back and have a decent game and score. And for the Italy goal, I'm just going for this guy because his name sounds quite possibly the most Italian name I think I've ever heard. So I'll go for a goal from Giacomo Raspadori. I mean, if someone offered you a Giacomo Raspadori and it turned up as a pizza, you wouldn't be disappointed, would you? It sounds delicious.
It's definitely been on the menu at Pizza Express.
It's a pizza and gelato combo.
Ooh. Lovely.
So, we've seen it already once today, but back with vengeance. England versus Hungary. Now then, like I said, whilst picking these games, I was like, gotta use the noodle for this. And I was like, they'll have had a telling off. They won't want another thrashing. So I've gone with 1-0 to England. Switch it all around. And again, I've just thrown Kane's name out there because, you know, if it's one goal, then he's going to be amongst it, isn't he? Let's do a back on ourselves. Paul.
So this is, again, scheduled to be played at Molineux. So I don't know if this is another one that falls under the behind closed doors category.
I find this ridiculous. Sorry, if this is... I'm jumping in the middle of something here. Like, if the Italy game is behind closed doors because Italy can't behave themselves, and then this game is behind closed doors because Hungary can't behave themselves, but both games are in England, or is this because the England fans couldn't behave themselves?
Yeah.
This is
from
linked to the Euro final, this one.
Well, then those fans need to get stuffed, and that serves them right. And, yeah, fine then. Sorry, my rant can go somewhere else then, because it was wrong. I was like, if we're getting stuck behind closed doors because Italian fans can't behave, then this is ridiculous. But
yeah, that'd be a little bit weird. So I'll go for a 2-0 England win. And I'm going to go for Abraham and Bowen to score the goals.
Love it.
Yeah.
Matthew, hot off the back of your rant.
I was about to say he's made me and Stu mad there, because I've gone for a 2-1 win, and I've said Abraham and Gallagher and Styles for Hungary. Styles is because he's British, something like, you know, Styles. Styles.
Stu, last up.
I had 2-0 Hungary, no, something like that, 2-0 England. Just completely got that wrong. For clarity, England 2, Hungary 0, just because they'll need to... I agree with you, Andy. I think they'll have had a bit of a going at after the absolute dross that they put out at the weekend. Seeing as I didn't pick him to score in the Italy game, clearly got to put Kane in because he's like won every other game anyway at least. And I was going to pick Bowen, but because Paul's picked him, I'm going to go for Bellingham instead. Might as well play for some points.
Why not, indeed? Unlike many weeks from the past, that is all the games that we have to predict. That is all she wrote as far as game predictions concerned. A bit sort of quiet with it just being the international stuff, but you know, still football goings on. We are still here talking football. Speaking of talking football, what else have you got for us today, gents? News.
I mean, you'll be shocked to hear it's pretty quiet on the Western Front, really. Borough have very, very sort of quiet from a transfers perspective. They've been linked today with a centre-half from Blackburn who's apparently turned down their recent offer of a new extended contract in favour of joining the Borough. Darren Lenihan, who's an Irish international who comes quite highly rated, looked at as a bit of an upgrade on what they've got potentially now in the positions. So, and also there's a potential there that if they do end up having to sell to strengthen other areas, if they manage to get rid of, say, Dale Fry for big money, they wouldn't have to spend loads to bring in a direct replacement, as there'd be one right there. outside of that, they've announced that the first pre-season friendly on Wednesday, the 20th of July, you can now get tickets to go and see them play. Oh, sorry, Borough 11, which usually means the kids play against Whitby Town.
I heard Bernie Slaven's going to get a run out as well.
Say again?
I said I heard Bernie Slaven's going to get a run out as well.
Very possibly. I had a quick Google, and the Whitby Town ground is actually closer to the seafront than I actually realised. So, depending on how well you know Whitby, does everyone know where the Crazy Golf is in Whitby?
Yes. Yeah.
And then the opposite side to that is the Pitch and Putt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, if you go a little bit further down the road and turn left, that's where the football ground is.
So, essentially, up the hill from the Whalebone.
Yes, basically.
Could be a lot of ground football then, I imagine, because like your golf ball does on the bit of putt. Oh, where's it go? Oh, it's off.
The problem is though, if they're playing that close to the seaside, do they not have to play with them? The footballs that you like get at the beach, where like you kick it and it's like anyway.
Yeah.
Flaggy curl.
Yeah, wind ball.
So here's our little teaser for today's podcast. How much do you reckon to see a Borough 11 take on Whitby Town?
£8.
4 different price tiers.
Do some of them include VIP meet and greets and a signed album at the end of it?
No. You've got adults concessions, under 18s and under 16s, but under 16s must be accompanied by an adult.
That's too much maths, that.
I reckon the adult tickets will be a tenner.
£10, correct, Stuart.
So that must make concessions about £6.
£6. He's looking on the website. I can tell.
Worked at a football club. This.
So what was the?
Can he hit the hat trick? Can he hit?
Concessions. You got like OAPs. What the OAP price is?
So he's got the adult ticket. He's got the concessions ticket. He needs the under 18s, and the under 16s must be accompanied by an adult.
So the under 18s. I'm going to go for the middle end for £8.
Let's say £8.
£3.
What? Those people should have paper rounds.
So I'm now confused, because that to me reads adults is basically anyone 18 to 60. Concessions must be 60 and above. Then you've got your under 18s and under 16s.
Under 16s will be free then. Oh, cheap.
£1 if you're under 16, but you must be accompanied by an adult.
So it's £11 then.
So you can go with your mum or your dad, but you can't go with your nan or your granddad then, because you can't go with the concession.
Always thinking is Mr. Woodmansey. But yes, so outside of the Whitby Town game, they've also confirmed friendlies at various levels against Bishop Auckland, Morecambe, Gisborough Town, Blythe Spartans, Dunstan UTS, Darlington, and most importantly of all, York City.
We're having that one, boys.
So the York City game is on a Friday evening.
Oh, it's meant to be.
And I believe it's a 7 p.m. kickoff. So
straight into town afterwards.
Just go to work, straight to the pub, straight to the stadium, straight to the nightclub after. Tie a few on. There's a bit of consternation between a couple of Borough fans though, as they're scheduled to fly to Portugal, literally the day after for a training camp. So I think there's a few people saying, not too sure what type of team they'll bring, but I imagine they'll fly from Teesside Airport anyway. It's only an hour, so.
If it's a friendly though, they'll bring enough to put out a different 11 both halves, won't they?
Oh, God, yeah, exactly. So they'll bring more than that. I'm sure I've seen games before where they've done three teams for 30 minutes.
Mm.
When's the Dunstan YTS game?
It doesn't say. I imagine that must be another Borough 11 because they're what, Northern League.
Well, it's just down the road from us, so that's like dead close to where we live. I mean, they're not very. I don't know what level they're at, but just down the road from us that way.
They're usually on the schedule for Pools in pre-season, Dunstan UTS. Pools have got a proper weird like pre-season this season. I think they've got some games in Portugal, and then they've got a mini tour of Scotland on the agenda. But then they finish with a glamour tie at home to Sunderland, so
have it all.
That's all I've got Borough based.
There's not too much on the whole front. It's looking 99% nailed on that we're about to sign a guy who was at Watford last year, but he's actually a Turkish international, I believe. Ozan Tufan, from another one from Fenerbahce from our side. People saying, "Oh, brilliant! He's Premier League experience and all the rest of it." He went to Watford on the basis of if they stayed up, they would have the option to buy him. We all know how that ended. And when Roy Hodgson took over January time, sent him back to Fenerbahce. So, we'll see. I suppose we are a division lower, so that might sort of put him in better stead. They've not really released the fee for it yet, because I think we're at that weird stage where they can look into making signings, but nothing becomes official until possibly either later this week, next week. But they've already put out that if Hull get promoted, not going to happen, the fee could rise to something like £4 million. So, yeah, looking a little optimistic already there. So we'll see how we go. But yeah, it's nice to see the owner sort of dabbling in the signings anyway. So we'll see what else sort of turns up.
Forest have announced they've got a friendly against Hertha Berlin at some point. And then obviously the main kind of rumour kind of thing, it's from pretty reliable sources, obviously, that Brice has turned down a contract extension. And I don't know, it's whether it's the a dance that they're doing, but obviously they were linked to Nick Pope from Burnley for 40 million, which seemed a bit much. I think is the phrase.
Did you say 40 as in 40?
40.
Holy crap! They are spending that playoff money.
I suppose there's a problem, though, isn't it? You look at the price of what people pay for keepers now, and they pay. How much were Liverpool and Man City paid, 60-70 million? I don't know if he's a £40 million keeper. I don't know what his contract status is either. But then rumour upon rumour of about 50 players that were going to sign this summer. As other people like to spend your apparently £100 million war chest that was being given. The problem is that £100 million war chest that he's given could be spent in 3-4 players, if that. I suspect that they'll be doing a lot of loan market acrobatics again. I don't think it's going to be this. They'll be spending, and hopefully they'll go out and get a striker or two, because I think that's what they need. But it's a shame about Brice. But then I don't think I've shied away from highlighting my issues with him at the club, kind of thing. The fact that I think he does feel himself a little bit, and he's, there's been times during last season that he's perhaps cost us games through his antics. So, yeah, for every penalty save or whatever in the playoff, or great save that he did in the playoff, there was times when, he misbehaved, got himself sent off, did daft things and that type of thing, where And to be fair, when Horace came in, didn't miss a beat. So, you know, hopefully it can be resolved. But if it isn't, and he's asking for a ridiculous amount of money to respect that everything that he's done for the club, and it's not money, it's just his stature within the club, apparently, is what has been said. But at the end of the day, if he wants to move back to France as well, that's fine, but just say that. Don't be, you know, I think sometimes players try to be clever about it and be like, oh, look, you know, look at all what I did for your club. If you want to move back to France, just say I want to move back to France, because, you know, we did sign him from a French club. You know, he might just be more comfortable living in France, and that's fine. But, you know, don't do this kind of respect. You know, I understand. You know, don't lowball. Hopefully Forest haven't lowballed him with a terrible offer. But, you know, there is this thing called negotiating, not just like, this is what I want, give me what I want. No, you haven't given me what I want. There's no negotiation here. And you kind of think, there are other goalkeepers.
Yeah, I think it's that thing in it. I think, like, from the romantic ideal, obviously he's directly linked to actually getting to the playoff final and getting through the playoff final. But it's not as if him not being in the team's a catastrophic disaster for him next season. Like, they can definitely get as good a keeper without crippling themselves financially. I don't think they'll be able to get a keeper with as much swagger as Brees. He's definitely in the horizontal because he's so fucking laid back. Like degree of keepers.
He is, but then he's an absolute wind-up merchant as well when he wants to be.
He's a grade A shithouse. He's absolutely fantastic on that regard.
I think when he doesn't get his own way, he becomes a real baby. And I think that was the problem that happened around the time he got sent off. I can't remember when it was now. But that was because he'd been a whinger for weeks. And he'd been pushing the edge of it for weeks and weeks and weeks. You know, like, I think a couple of games before that, him and Scott McKenna had nearly come to blows because of a misplaced back pass or something like that. You know,
was that against the Borough?
It was on telly. I don't.
I think that was the. I think that was the. I think that might be the Borough game, you know, because I'm pretty sure the goal it came off the back of a horrendously misplaced back pass.
No, that was Yates. That was just because you wanted me to say that again.
There it is.
To my veins.
It was a night game. It might have been Luton. It was one of them kind of terrible little clubs that.
Obviously, for any Luton fans that have just happened to stop in on the podcast, apologies. But then again, your club is a little shithole, so just deal with it.
I mean, like,
sit on the fence, Paul. I mean, tell us how you really feel.
Find out what
they can all get in the fucking bin.
But yeah,
at least you pull your punches anyway.
It'll be a shame for him to go, but also, if he does go, it'll be a shame for him to go. But also, I think if we could get a bit more of a steadying kind of thing, you know, if Nick Pope is that kind of player, you know, I don't know who else is about. Obviously, this is where he starts to sound like, oh, we're in the Premiership, we can have whoever we want. The lad who's the backup at Man United who wants out.
Not Johnston.
Well, you got the guy from West Brom, isn't it? Johnson. He
Dean Henderson.
Yeah. You know, there's other options.
I believe that's pretty much it.
Well, there we go. International football reviewed and predicted. Hopefully we'll see a better form from England in the coming games and see where it goes from there. Tune in next week for reviewing the games we predicted, talking more things from the respective clubs, and any other news that's going on in the football world. All that's left is for me to thank these gentlemen for taking me and you lovely people through the somewhat less murky waters of the football world, mostly because there's not a lot of football going on. Right, thank you very much, gentlemen, and we shall see you next week. Bye-bye. So there you go, what do you think of that? England game's done, more to come, and plenty of news in there for you. Football will be coming to a close eventually, but not just yet, so keep coming back for your football podcast. Before you go, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Drop us a review if you've got some time, and if you're surfing around on the internet, you can check out our website at thecookiecast.com. There's social media links and an email button so you can get in touch with us. There we go, that's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.